Right, guys. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa ba'd. Inshallah ta'ala, let's continue with hadith number 40 of the 40 hadith collection of Imam Nawawi. Now this is not the last hadith. I know you may be thinking that, okay, 40 hadith, we're on hadith number 40, this is the last session. No. Imam Nawawi, there's actually 42 hadiths, right? Anyone who has the book or has the print at home or you're reading it from it online, if you're actually reading the book, you'll see that there are 42 hadiths listed. So we have 2 more sessions, or 2 more hadiths to cover for that matter, and then we'll be done with this series, inshallah ta'ala. So let's have somebody read this hadith for us. Bismillah. Let's have, who has the mic? But Amadou, you got the mic?
Can I just read it?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال أخذ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بمنكبي فقال كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب أو عابر سبيل وكان ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما يقول إذا أمسيت فلا تنتظر الصباح وإذا أصبحت فلا تنتظر المساء وخذ من صحتك لمرضك ومن حياتك لموتك رواه البخاري.
Good, Jazakallahu khairan. Ahsanta, excellent. Let's have somebody read the English as well. Can we pass the mic up here to Abdurrahman?
Abdullah ibn Umar reported, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Be in this world as if you are a stranger or traveler along a path." Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, would say, "If you make it to the evening, then do not wait for the morning. If you make it to the morning, and do not wait for the evening. Take from your health for your sickness, and from your life and from your death." Sahih al-Bukhari. Sahih.
And from your life for your death. Jazakallahu khairan. Ahsanta, Jazakallahu khairan. Excellent. We have, so this hadith is recorded in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, and it's narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. Now we've already seen a few hadiths which have been narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar, so we're not going to speak too much about him at this point. So Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, أخذ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بمنكبي أو قال أخذ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بمنكبي. He said the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم took a hold of my 2 shoulders. Or there's another way in which you can read this hadith, in which you can read it as if the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم took a hold of my shoulder. 1 shoulder or 2 shoulders. You can read it both ways. But the point is, the Prophet ﷺ made some physical contact with Abdullah ibn Umar. Now, he was a young Sahabi. Abdullah ibn Umar was the son of Umar ibn al-Khattab, one of the best friends of the Prophet ﷺ, and the second greatest companion after Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Now, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, as I mentioned, he was a young kid, a young man at that time, and the Prophet ﷺ is giving him some advice. Okay, he's giving him some advice. So he grabs him on the shoulder or both shoulders. And then he says to Abdullah, he says, "Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharibun aw abiru sabil." He says, be in this gharibun aw abiru sabil. He says, be in this world, be in the dunya, right? As if you were a person who's strange, a person who does not belong in this place. Or be as if you were a person who's strange, a person who does not belong in this place. Or be as somebody who's just passing by on a path, right? Just like be a wayfarer, be like somebody who's a wayfarer, passing by on a path, right? Just like be a wayfarer, be like somebody who's a wayfarer. A wayfarer, a abiru sabil, is somebody who's just crossing a path, somebody who's just stops on the way and they're gonna get ready to go on with their journey. So the Prophet ﷺ is telling him to live your life like this, right? And we're gonna talk about what that means and some of the benefits. Who's just crossing a path, somebody who's just stops on the way and they're gonna get ready to go on with their journey. So the Prophet ﷺ is telling him to live your life like this, right? And we're gonna talk about what that means and some of the benefits. And then the Prophet ﷺ, after he gave Abdullah this advice, Abdullah radiallahu anhu, as Imam al-Bukhari mentions, that he used to say, the Prophet ﷺ, after he gave Abdullah this advice, Abdullah radiallahu anhu, as Imam al-Bukhari mentions, that he used to say, that إذا أمسيت فلا تنتظر الصباح. When you reach that إذا أمسيت فلا تنتظر الصباح. When you reach the night, don't expect to reach the morning. وإذا أصبحت فلا تنتظر المساء. And when you reach the morning, don't expect to reach. وإذا أصبحت فلا تنتظر المساء. From your health, for your times of sickness. ومن حياتك لموتك. And take from your life for your death. So let's talk about this hadith now, inshallah ta'ala. Number one, we can see the first benefit we can get from this hadith is looking at the teaching style of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, looking at the teaching style of his. The way that he would teach is that he would give examples. Right, he just didn't tell Abdullah ibn Umar what to do, but he told him how to live, and he gives him an example, 2 examples. He says, how should you be? In other words, if you want a comparison of how you should be in your life, think about somebody who's strange in a land that they don't belong to. Imagine you go on vacation, you go on a business trip to another country, right? The place is going to be different depending on what country you go to. Imagine you travel to Europe, or you travel to somewhere in Asia. The place is going to be completely different. The culture of the people is different. The language that they speak is different. The customs of the people, the way that they act is very different. Right? Sometimes, especially here in this country, we're used to driving on which side of the road? The right side or the left side? The right side, right? Other countries, they're driving on the left side. So that's something that's really weird to a lot of people, right? And for those of us who have never traveled to another country in which you're driving like this, right? Like, you don't know how strange it is when you're actually in a place like that. Right? It's really strange, really weird. It's like if you want to drive in a place like that, it's like you have to kind of like recalibrate your mind to kind of get used to the road. So the Prophet ﷺ is giving us an example, right? And as teachers, when you want to teach somebody something, give them an example. Give them an analogy. Now obviously, what is the benefit of an analogy? The benefit of an analogy is to bring an idea that you want to convey to somebody, but maybe that idea may be a bit vague. So you want to give that person an example from something that they know already, right? And everybody knows what it's like to be, a stranger in a land, right? We've all traveled somewhere. We've all been, to school, and it's the first day of school, right? It's like we're strange. Everything is weird. Everything is not. We're not accustomed to everything around us. So we know what it's like to be strange. We know what it's like to pass on a road, to just pass by on a road, to pass on our journey. We know what that's like. So because of Abdullah, he knew what that was like as well. The Prophet ﷺ gave him that example. And once you understand, and we're going to talk about some of the benefits of these examples that the Prophet ﷺ gave. So let's talk about what are some, in fact, I'm going to ask you guys, what are some benefits of somebody being a stranger? In other words, when you're a stranger, right, what does it have to do with this life? How can we benefit from this prophetic advice? Yeah.
No one around you knows you.
No one around you knows you, but how does that have to do with this dunya? You got a lot of people that know me, a lot of people that know you. You have families, you have friends.
So you can just focus on Allah? So you can just focus on Allah?
Okay, excellent, right? You just focus on Allah, excellent. So when you're out on a journey, right, when you're in a strange land, right, you don't really know anyone around you, you're gonna be thinking about those who you know, right? Of course, a benefit we can get from that is, in this life, you're focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You're not being too attached to people around you, okay? Just kind of, like jumping off of, his benefit that he mentioned, I think something we can appreciate from what the brother has mentioned as well is when you're out on a journey, right? Imagine you drive to go buy something at a store that's far away. When you go to that store, do you really care about anybody in that store in particular? Not to say that you don't care about them and anything can happen to them and you wouldn't care, but you don't really have any attachment to those people, right? You go there, you want to buy something. The cashier, the guy at the cash register, his name could be Bob, his name could be Jeff. Like, you wouldn't care, right? Just like, give me my product, let me buy it, and let me be on my way, right? You're not there to waste any time, right? Anytime you go away from home, you want to be home as fast as possible, right? You're not there to really form any attachments with anybody, right? Sometimes it does happen. You meet nice people, you meet somebody who's nice, you see them often, right? That's one thing. But that's not really your goal, right? That's not really your goal when you're in a strange place. You want to get done whatever you want to get done, and then you want to go back home, right? What else? What's another benefit? Yeah.
Your stay is just temporarily, just like your life in this world is just temporarily.
Excellent, right? Normally you're at home most of the time. Normally you're at home most of your time. And sometimes You're out traveling. Sometimes you're out and you gotta travel, you gotta go on different paths, you gotta go on the highway. Sometimes you're traveling, but the amount of time that you spend the amount of time that you spend traveling is not more than the amount of time that you spend at home, in your home country or your hometown. You spend a lot more time there. In other words, this dunya, this world, is just like one small journey, right? We're truly gonna go, we're gonna go home to our real home. We don't really belong here, right? We don't really belong here. So when you go out on a journey, right? When you're going and you're running on errands, you don't care to be there for a long time. You just want to get whatever you need to get done, and then you're ready to go home. Right? Excellent, right? That this example that the Prophet ﷺ gave us can show us how short this life is. It's not long, right? So we shouldn't get too attached to the things around us. What else? Yeah. You guys want to pass the mic? Unless you have a loud voice.
When it says like a traveler, when you look at a traveler don't have too much of baggage. So
excellent, right? Look at how beautiful that example is, right? Or that benefit. Somebody who's traveling, do they carry on their whole house? I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but like on the highway sometimes, you know how they have those trucks that move, the big houses. Normally people don't do that, right? Some people, they travel in big RVs and things like that, right? But for the most part, you travel with your car, you take whatever you need for your journey, and then that's it. Right? You don't go, when you go out on a trip, do you buy big things that you can't take home? Obviously not. Right? When you go out, you buy things that you need. You don't want to spend too much money. Right? So you're not going to be carrying too many things. Excellent, right? So a benefit we can get from that is don't acquire too much in this life. And we're going to talk about this. Doesn't mean that we can't have nice things in this life. We can't have nice cars, nice homes. It doesn't mean that, right? But keep it in your mind that you shouldn't be chasing after this life in the expense of the akhirah, right? If chasing after this life is going to come in the way of you getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know what you have to do, right? You have to travel light, right? Travel with a little bit of luggage, whatever is going to, allow you to go back home safely, right? What else? What are some other benefits we get from this? Yeah.
When you're traveling, your end focus is your destination. You're not really dilly-dallying or going
dilly-dallying. Excellent, right? You're not really dilly-dallying, right? You're not really playing around, all right? So, you're going there, right? Your focus, your heart is not in that place. Your heart is not in that place. Your heart is not in that particular place that you're traveling in and you're a strange person in that land, right? Your heart is not in that place. You're constantly focused on your destination. You don't really care about that place. You don't really want to be in that place. You want to go back home where you belong, right? You want to go to your destination, right? Yeah. And then I'll come over here, inshallah.
Because a traveler, right? It can go to its home safely, right?
A traveler, he.
He can go to his home safely, right? But it's just like the world. We can go to Jannah safely.
Excellent,
or
right?
You can get in trouble, you can get attacked by something, or
excellent.
You can do
Look at that
crime,
benefit,
and
mashallah.
And then on this world, the example is that you would go to
Jannah.
Jahannam.
Right, excellent, right? That's a bit, that's something I didn't even think about. Imagine somebody who's traveling, right? They're on the highway. Bad things can happen. You could hit a deer. You could run something over, an animal over. You can get into a car accident. So in other words, when you're traveling, you got to stay away from those things that are going to get you in trouble. Why? Because you want to get to your destination. Right? Excellent. You don't want to be hit by any of those obstacles, right? You want to have, as smooth ride as you can have, right? What else? I think sisters wanted to mention something. Right? Another benefit, okay, let me mention another one. One that the scholars mention is that a person who is a stranger in a land, he doesn't really compete with the people too much. He doesn't really compete with the people too much because he doesn't want to be there in the first place. He doesn't really care. He just wants to go to his destination. He wants to go back home. Right? So he doesn't really compete with the people in their cultural things, in their land. He doesn't belong there in the first place. So all of these things, if you think about all of these things that we've mentioned, all of these benefits, that's how we should be when it comes to this worldly life, right? In other words, in this dunya, you living as a believer in this dunya, you're going to understand that you shouldn't compete too much for this dunya and make this dunya the only thing that you should care about, right? That there's more and something that's greater to focus on. That you have a greater focus. You're not, you don't belong here, right? In this world, you don't belong here. You were born in this life. Right? If like when babies are born, they don't know anything. They can't help themselves. But then you learn. You don't know anything else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا. Allah, He says, Allah brought you out of the wombs of your mothers not knowing anything. Like imagine that, but then you learn a little bit. You learn how to say one word, two words, then you learn ideas, then you learn how to do things, run, walk, do many different things, and now you're here, and you think that this is it. I'm going to be here forever. But what everybody knows is that everybody will die. Everybody knows this. We all know that we will die. Right? You know that you're going to die, and I know that I'm going to die. But some of us, we get deluded. We think that we're going to be here forever. But just think about this. You could die today. You could die tomorrow. You could die next week. You could die next year, next month. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best when we will die, but we will die. Right? We will die. Yes. Just
in the beginning
speak to the mic,
in
inshallah.
the beginning of your journey, you can't just like expect to be there in 1 second, right? Like it's just like that in the world. You can't just expect to go to Jannah.
Excellent. Even though you're gonna be there for a small amount of time, sometimes your journey takes a long time. And I want you guys to think about this. I know because especially when it comes to us traveling and being a wayfarer, to some of us that may not really ring any bells in our minds. But think, if you want to understand the second example that the Prophet ﷺ gives, he said to live in this world as if you're a stranger in a land. Right? Those of us who have come to this country from another land, you know what that feels like. But when it comes to being a wayfarer, what does that even mean? What that means is imagine you are on the highway and you need to stop for some gas or you need to stop to use the bathroom. And you're stopping on the rest area. The rest area, you're just passing on the rest area to get to your destination. When you're at that rest area, do you sit there and want to spend a long time there? You don't really care. You just want to use the bathroom and be on your trip. That's it. That's all you care about. So in this dunya, as a believer, right? Even though, as the brother mentioned, that it's a small time that you're going to be traveling, right? You still have to understand it's going to take some time. You have to kind of make the right turns. Right? You have to make the right turns. You have to follow the GPS, the guide, right? You have to do all of the things right that's going to get you to your destination. But the point is that when you're on the journey, all you care about is getting to your destination. And I think that's the highlighting point of the Prophet ﷺ. He's saying, don't be too attached to this life. It's not permanent. Right? It's not permanent. And the Prophet ﷺ, he even tells us that Islam began as something strange. Right? The Prophet ﷺ tells us a hadith in Sahih Muslim that بَدَأَ الْإِسْلَامُ غَرِيبًا وَسَيَعُودُ غَرِيبًا. The Islam began as something strange and it will return as something strange. And in our time, of course, all of us can relate to this. When you're at school as a Muslim, when you're at work as a Muslim, they see that you have a beard, you have a hijab, you look strange. Why are you dressing like that? Why do you have this beard? Why do you have to grow it? Why do you have to pray 5 times a day? Why are you washing yourself every time you have to pray? Why do you have to do this? Right? It's strange to a lot of people, especially living in a land like this. So clearly we can see the benefit and the proof of the Prophet ﷺ saying that Islam will return as something strange. And to some of us, even in the Muslim community, you're strange. Right? So many people, like so many Muslims, they're far from their deen to the point that if somebody's just praying 5 times a day, he's an extremist. Right? He's an extremist. He's gonna, be a sheikh or he's a sheikh. Like some of us, we consider somebody who's just doing the bare minimum to be a sheikh, to be a maulana. Right? But that's something that we all have to do. So to some of us, we're even strangers in our own families. Among your, circle of friends, if you start practicing, then they're gonna be like, yo, this guy's weird, this guy's strange. Like, why you always gotta talk about the religion, man? Why you always have to talk about Allah and Islam? Why can't you just enjoy life? And that's because being strange is not always bad. And the Prophet ﷺ is telling Abdullah ibn Umar to live your life as if you're strange. You don't really belong in this world. Don't get too attached. And sometimes you're gonna face the repercussions of being strange. People are gonna say things to you. People are gonna curse you out. Right? Raise your hand if you've ever been on the road. Have you ever been in the subway or at work or school, whatever the case is, and somebody cursed you out or insulted you because you're Muslim? Raise your hand. That's it. Nobody? Raise your hand. It's okay. I want to see those hands, inshallah. Right? Raise those hands, right? So a good amount of us, right? We've been cursed out or people have, tried to assault us verbally or physically just because we're Muslims. All right? So a lot of us, we can relate to this fact of being strange. But then the Prophet ﷺ, he just doesn't tell us that Islam is going to be strange and that the believers are going to be strange. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَطُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَاءِ. That tuba, which is a paradise, which is a tree in paradise. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that tuba, this tree, paradise is for the ghuraba, for the strangers. Right? So, and sometimes you may find this hadith translated as glad tidings to the strangers. But the point is that Jannah is for the strangers. Paradise are for those people who want to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's law so much that sometimes they may just be strange among their people. right? But we have to remember that why are we behaving like this? Why are we praying 5 times a day? Why do we dress the way we dress? We dress the way we dress because we want to get to our destination, just as the brothers mentioned, right? We want to get to our destination. That's why we're doing all of these things. We don't really belong here to stay, right? This is just a temporary stop. And the Prophet ﷺ, in another authentic narration, he explains to us who the ghuraba are. Right? He says that tuba, this tree will be for the ghuraba. In one narration, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions الَّذِينَ يُصْلِحُونَ إِذَا فَسَدَ النَّاسِ. That the ghuraba, who are they? They are the people that correct themselves. They are the people that make things better. They reform society. They reform others around them when the people have become corrupt. So إِذَا فَسَدَ النَّاسِ, when the people have been corrupt, people are following their desires, nobody cares about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the akhirah, the ghuraba, the strange ones, they are the ones that are not just strange. Like, don't understand that this hadith is telling you to be a weirdo, right? Everybody's eating something and you want to eat something because you want to be strange. It doesn't mean that. The strangers are those who yuslihun, that they make things better, yuslihun, that they make improvements in their community, right? They make a difference in their community. These are the strange people. Right? So if you want to understand who the ghuraba are, according to the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us that they are the people that rectify and make improvements when the people have become corrupt. In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us that the ghuraba are قَوْمٌ صَالِحُونَ قَلِيلٌ, that they are a few righteous people. That the strangers, who are the strangers? If you want to know who the strangers are, they're always a minority in their group. They're minority and they're righteous. They're few righteous people. في ناس سوء كثير. في ناس سوء كثير. في ناس سوء كثير. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that there are a small amount of righteous people among a large amount of evil people. Right? Large amount of evil people. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he says, مَنْ يَعْصِيهِمْ أَكْثَرُ مِمَّنْ يُطِيعُهُم. That the people who disobey these people are way more than those who obey them. They don't really have much influence over the actions of others around them. But the Prophet ﷺ, in the previous narration, he said that they are yuslihun, that they are trying to call the people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're trying to make a difference in their societies. But they're not really doing much. They're not really having that much impact because of the amount of evil that's present in the society. So one may say that this could be the state of a lot of Muslims here where we're living, or in the world at large, right? So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those ghuraba, ameen. And so the Prophet ﷺ, after he gives this advice, Imam Nawawi mentions that Abdullah ibn Umar, he gives some advice as well. Now the second point of advice that you see there is not from the Prophet ﷺ, but you can see that Abdullah ibn Umar, taking that prophetic advice, he said the following statements. He said that إِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحِ. When you reach the night, don't expect to reach the morning. And the scholars have mentioned that there are two meanings to this. It can mean that you literally don't expect to reach the morning, as if you could die. As a believer, right, you should realize, as I mentioned, that you could die at any moment, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best when. But Abdullah, he is saying that when you reach the night, when it's time to go to sleep, you got to understand that you should not expect to reach Fajr time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can take your soul. And wallahi, if you think like this, right, wallahi, you're going to make sure that you do all of the things that are necessary so that you won't have to deal with any procrastination on the Day of Judgment. Right? A lot of people, they may enter the fire because of procrastination. We seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's protection from that. So the scholars mentioned that it could literally mean that you literally don't expect to live until the morning. And then he says, وَإِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءِ. And when you reach the morning, when Allah has given you the ni'mah, the blessing of reaching the morning, don't expect to reach the night. So one meaning is that you literally don't expect to reach those times. That you actually have in your mind that you could die, that don't expect living until tonight. Don't expect living until tomorrow morning. And the other meaning is to make, is that Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he's saying to make the proper, preparations for those times. That don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until tonight. That do whatever you need to do right now. And a lot of people, when it comes to tawbah, they want to make tawbah later. They say, oh, I'm going to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala later. Right? If you look in the Quran, anytime the prophets, they would make mistakes, immediately, all of the prophets, they would seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness right away. Musa alayhi salam, when he punched that man, when he hit that man, he said, oh Allah, forgive me. Dawood alayhi salam in Surah Sad, when he made a mistake in his judgment, he said, oh Allah, forgive me. Ayyub alayhi salam, even though he didn't commit any apparent sin or mistake, he was afflicted with, with sickness. He said, "Oh Allah," he said, "Anta arhamur rahimin." He said, "You are the most merciful of those who are merciful." So even the prophets, even the slightest mistake that they would make, they would rush to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive them. So we should be just like that. Like every time you reach the night, make tawbah from the the evil and the sins you've done during the day. Right? When you reach the morning, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Make tawbah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives you of the sins that you've committed in the night. And then Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he says to take from your health. He said, خُذْ مِنْ صِحَّتِكَ لِمَرَضِكَ. Take from your health for your sickness. Because you're not going to be healthy forever. Right? There's going to come a point in time where you're not going to be able to run the way that you're running right now. You're not going to be able to even sit down and to walk and do the basic things that you're doing right now. There's going to come a point in time where you're not going to be able to do those things. And for those of us who have advanced in age, if you're in your 40s, your 50s, 30s, you know that when you were a teenager, it was different. You could do a lot of things when you were young that you can't do right now. So we are all experiencing this, right? We are all experiencing this. Even me, like I remember things that I was able to do when I was younger, but I'm not able to do them now, right? I'm not an old man yet. And mashallah, I don't think anybody here is an old man yet or old woman. Mashallah, a lot of young people, a lot of young faces, mashallah. But the thing is, we can observe our bodies changing. We can observe that. So after a matter of time, we're going to become proofs of what Abdullah ibn Umar is saying, that we need to take from our health for our sickness, and for our old age by extension. Okay? And there's a hadith with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He tells us in Bukhari, he says, "Ni'matani maghbunun fihima kathirun min an-nas." The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tells us that there are two blessings. There are two blessings that many people are losers in terms of these blessings. They don't take advantage of them. Right? And maghbunun literally means somebody in a trade transaction and they get cheated. They lose their money. In fact, when it comes to these two blessings, the Prophet ﷺ is saying that many people they lose out on. And these two blessings, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, as-sihhatu wal-faragh, health and free time. Especially before you have children, right? When you have children, then your free time, you can observe that your free time, you have a lot less of it now. Right? When you start working, you start getting busy, then you start to value your time. But when you don't have anything to do, you're sitting at home, it's summer vacation from school, mashallah, you have a lot of time. And what do? We waste that time. Right? Play video games, we do this. Not that those things are haram, absolutely. Right? But we waste a lot of our time. So Abdullah ibn Umar, he's saying that take from your health for your sickness, وَمِنْ حَيَاتِكَ لِمَوْتِكَ, and take from your life for your death. Right? You're not going to live forever. And life is made up of time. Right? If you want to, understand what your life is, it's really time. Right? That's why Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, from the Tabi'een, not from the Sahaba, he says, Ya bna Adam, he says, O son of Adam, innama anta ayyam. He says, you're only a few days. You are a few days. That's all you are. You're one day to the next. That's it. So he says, فَكُلَّمَا ذَهَبَ يَوْمٌ ذَهَبَ بَعْضُكَ. He says that when one day is finished, then some of you is basically done. Every time a day passes, then it's a part of you that's diminishing, that's finishing, right? That's being complete. You can't go back anymore. You can't go back to yesterday. So your life is literally made up of days, of time. So the more time you waste, the more of your life you're wasting. Well, if you think about it like that, it changes, your perspective a lot, right? Every time, every minute you're wasting your life there, right? So, especially when it comes to your life, Ibn Umar, he says, take advantage of your life before your death. And, Ibn Qayyim and many other scholars, they mention this quote, and that is that wasting time is worse than death. Wasting time is worse than death. I think many of us here, you've heard this quote before, but why did Ibn Qayyim, he explains why he says this, but why do you think he would say that wasting time is worse than death? It's not a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, nor an ayah from the Quran. It's a statement of a scholar, but it's true, right? But it's only true because of the reason as to why that is. Why is wasting time worse than death? Yeah.
Because the time you waste, you'll be questioned about it.
You're going to be questioned about it. Good. That's a very good point, right? You're going to be questioned about it, but why is it worse than death, though? What does it have to do with death? Right? Yes, brother. Somebody have the mic? Is that Brother Wasim? There you go.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Because wasting time, you're alive, and you're wasting the time. But when you're dead, you're already dead. So you understand this?
So when you're dead, you don't have time to waste.
Right.
So wasting time is worse than death because you have the time and you're wasting
You have
it.
the time.
Okay, good, right? That could be a point, mashallah. I mean, that could be a reason as to why Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned that. That's not exactly the reason why he mentioned that, but that's a good point though, right? That those who are dead, they would do anything to get back a little bit of time, right? But you have that time now, right? But maybe some people may think that's not really giving a full picture as to why it's worse than death. Why is it worse than death? Any sisters? Do we have a mic here? Oh yeah, get the mic up there.
Because you have no purpose. You're serving no purpose, basically.
Like, what do you mean? Like, oh yeah, like when you die, you're serving a purpose.
No, you said why is, what's the question, basically?
Okay, so the question is,
See if I
the question is why would Ibn al-Qayyim, why would he say that wasting time is worse than death? In other words, Ibn al-Qayyim is really saying that if you have a choice between dying or wasting time, you should choose to die. Because wasting time is worse.
Because the more time you have, the more probably sin you'll commit, or you'll be sitting
Okay,
more,
excellent, right? The more time you waste, the more chances you have of committing sins. So if you die, you have no chance of committing sins. It's done, right? Beautiful, excellent. Yeah, Brother Lutfi.
Yeah.
So why is it worse than death? That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, wasting time is there's no benefit in wasting time, so you might as well die.
Because it's gone, you can't get it back.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Because death separates you from this life, but wasting time separates you from Allah.
Excellent, right? This is exactly why Ibn al-Qayyim, why he says that. He says, إِضَاعَةُ الْوَقْتِ أَشَدُّ مِنَ الْمَوْتِ. He said, wasting time is worse than death. لِأَنَّ إِضَاعَةَ الْوَقْتِ تَقْطَعُكَ عَنِ اللَّهِ وَالدَّارِ الْآخِرَةِ. Ibn al-Qayyim mentions that wasting time, right? When you waste time, it cuts you off from Allah. Right? It pushes you away from Allah. Right? You're not doing anything that's beneficial. Right? You're in a situation where you're wasting your time. You're doing nothing with your time. You're not benefiting in this dunya nor in the akhirah. So when you're wasting time, Ibn al-Qayyim, he says that you are pushing yourself away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's cutting you off from Allah and it's cutting you off from the akhirah. In the akhirah and in your meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you cannot benefit when you waste your time. Right? So wasting time cuts you off from Allah and the akhirah. And then he says, وَالْمَوْتُ يَقْطَعُكَ عَنِ الدُّنْيَا وَأَهْلِهَا. And he says that death cuts you off from this dunya and its people. Right? So which would you rather be cut off from? Would you rather be cut off from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the people in this life? Would you rather be cut off from the akhirah or cut off from this life? So Ibn al-Qayyim, Ibn al-Qayyim is not saying that you should try to kill yourself or you should try to die. He's not saying that. But he's trying to show you that when it comes to your time, it's worse than dying. That's basically what he's saying. Right? In the grand scheme of things, right? Dying is much less worse than wasting time. And some of us, we sit down for hours, and this is not to say that like wasting time necessarily is haram. But knowing where you are and the fact that you're a traveler and you're not here for a long period of time, inshallah ta'ala, understanding that's going to allow you to waste a lot less time. So listen, to be a believer and to be perfect, 24 hours a day and not waste any time, one could say that's kind of impossible. You're going to be doing something. You're going to be waiting for your food to heat up in the microwave. You're going to be having to listen to something you don't want to listen to. You're going to have to be doing certain things that could be considered wasting your time. But the point is you want to try to minimize that as much as possible. And Ibn al-Qayyim mentions that Mu'adh ibn Jabal, who is a Sahabi, radiallahu anhu, he says, لَيْسَ تَحَسُّرُ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ إِلَّا عَلَى سَاعَةٍ مَرَّتْ بِهِمْ لَمْ يَذْكُرُ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ فِيهَا. Mu'adh ibn Jabal, radiallahu anhu, he says the only regret of the people of paradise is that they lived and moments passed them by where they could remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in those moments. This is the regret of the people of Jannah, as Mu'adh radiallahu anhu mentions. Al-Hasan al-Basri, who I just mentioned a quote of him before, he's a tabi'i, he met a lot of the Sahaba. He said, أَدْرَكْتُ أَقْوَامًا كَانُوا عَلَىٰ أَوْقَاتِهِمْ أَشَدَّ مِنْكُمْ حِرْصًا عَلَىٰ دَرَاهِمِكُمْ وَدَنَانِيرِكُمْ. Al-Hasan al-Basri, he says to the people who came after the Sahaba. Remember, he met the Sahaba. So he said that I met people that are more diligent to watching their time. They're more diligent for their time more than you are over your money, your dollars and your dimes and And in their time they had dinars and they had dirham. They had dinars and dirhams. A dinar was the silver pieces that they had. The silver coins, those were the darahim. And the dananir, or the dinar that they would have, those are the silver pieces. In other words, he's saying that the Sahaba paid more attention to their time than you people pay attention to your money. And a lot of people, obviously, they're going to make sure that their money is set, that they can have a comfortable life. The Sahaba, they paid more attention to their time. Right? That was more valuable to them than their money. But some people is like, as long as I have money, I can waste time. Al-Hasan al-Basri, he's saying that this is how the Sahaba were. And as I mentioned, that this does not negate enjoying in the dunya. If you read Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a dua that the believers say, that رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا, that, oh our Lord, grant us in this dunya what is good. We want what is good in this life. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the good of this life. Ameen. وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنًا, and we also want the hasana, or the good in the akhirah. وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ, and save us from the fire, the punishment of the fire. Right, so even in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a dua of the believers and they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the good of this life. There's good in this life. And Islam doesn't tell you that you need to go kill yourself, you need to suffer, you need to not have any enjoyment. Islam is not telling you that. But the point is that there's a balance in everything. There's a balance in everything, that you have to realize that there are certain priorities, that the way that you live your life is not like how a non-Muslim lives their life. They don't have the same direction that you do. They don't have the same goals that you have. You're going towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're going towards the akhirah, so obviously there has to be some change in your life. Right? That there has to be some change that caters to that goal that you have. And Imam Ahmad, he was asked that مَتَى يَجِدُ الْعَبْدُ طَعْمَ الرَّاحَةِ. Imam Ahmad, somebody asked him that when will a person find the taste of comfort? Imam Ahmad, somebody asked him, when will a person find comfort? So Imam Ahmad, he says, عند أول قدم يضعها في الجنة. He says a person will truly find comfort with the first step that they take in paradise. That's the true comfort. The first step that you take in paradise is going to be better than this entire world and whatever it has to offer. Right? So really, as a believer, you should be making that your priority. Now, let's just talk about, so as I mentioned, right, you can go after the good things of this life, no problem. But when it becomes a problem is when you allow that to get in the way of you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And that's why the Sahaba, they had a lot of money. Some of the Sahaba, if you calculate their wealth according to today's wealth, they were millionaires. Uthman radiallahu anhu had a ton of money. Abu Bakr, they had a lot of money. But at the same time, they were the best generation. Right? And they were from those who were promised paradise. Why? It's because they had their money here. Right? Some of us, we have our money here in our hearts. And that's occupying our hearts from getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the Sahaba, they had it in their hands. And that's why when it was ready for them to give it in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to donate, to help the poor, to help those who need it, they would give it. Right? Because it wasn't in their heart. Right? They weren't really attached to it. But at the same time, they had the luxuries of this life as well. Right? They had, some good things from this life. So when it comes to this hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's not telling Abdullah ibn Umar to do anything specific. He's not telling him to do something. He's telling him to change your mindset. Right? That live your life. In other words, he's not telling him to do anything. You have to change the way that you think. How do you think about yourself in this life? That's really what this hadith is telling us. So you really have to change your mindset, because if you haven't changed your mindset, then nothing that we've mentioned, you cannot, fulfill any of those things. It has to be a mindset change, that you kind of get it in your mind that, hey, listen, I'm going to die. And I need to get my things in order so that I can have a good time in the akhirah. Right? That's really what this hadith is telling us. So let's just talk about some practical ways in which you can develop this mindset. How can somebody develop this mindset in which they're focusing on the akhirah and they're living this life as if they're a stranger or somebody just passing on a journey? Number one is read the Quran. Read the Quran. That is the message to you from your Lord from outside this world. Right? It's outside of this planet. This message is from another world, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah azza wa jal, it's a personal letter to you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you want to know about the akhirah, the only way that we know about the akhirah in the first place is because Allah told us. It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran, and we hear that in the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. Number two is to try to learn about the akhirah specifically as much as you can. Try to read the ayat about Jannah. Try to read the ayat about Jahannam. Try to, there are courses online, there are videos you can watch, there are lectures you can listen to. Try to find whatever sources you can to learn about the akhirah. Right? Read the hadiths about the akhirah. Read the verses of the Quran about what's going to happen on the Day of Judgment. Right? And, inshallah ta'ala, this can cause a person to, cause the akhirah to be much more focused in their life. Right? They can have a greater focus on the akhirah. Number 3, and this is a big one, be around good company. Be around good company. Right? If you want to be a certain way, right, then you have to try to be around people who are like that. You never find hawks flying with pigeons. Right? You never find that. Hawks are, either by themselves or with each other, right? Pigeons fly with each other, right? Other birds, you don't really find them mixing like that. So if you want to be like a hawk, right, you can't be hanging around the pigeons, right? If you want to be somebody who has a certain mindset and certain goals, you have to align yourself with people like that. Right? You have to, surround yourself with people like that. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us that a person is on the religion of their close friend. So let each one of you look to whom he takes as his close friend. Right? A lot of us, we have friends who tell us to do many bad things, who are bad influences on us. And remember, we spoke about this before. When it comes to abandoning your brother, you're not supposed to abandon your brother. Like when you leave a certain company, don't abandon your Muslim brothers. Like still give them the salam, but I'm talking about chilling with them. I'm talking about hanging out with them, spending your days and nights with them. That's a problem. If you're around people, even though they're Muslims, if they have a bad influence on you, stay away from that company. Right? You have Muslims who smoke drugs. You have Muslims who commit zina. You have Muslims who do a lot of bad things. Just because they're Muslims doesn't mean that they're good company. You can have somebody who's a Muslim and every believer has good in them. No doubt about that. But there's certain people that you want to be around, certain people that you consider righteous. Right? People of knowledge, people that can command the good and forbid the evil. You want to be around those people. Number 4 is to watch your time. Point number 4 is to watch your time. And we recite a surah, I think all of us have memorized Surah Al-Asr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Wal Asr, by time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by many different aspects of time in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Wal Duha, by the early morning. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the night and by the day. Allah swears by al-fajr, wal-fajr. Many different times of the day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by. But in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He swears by time itself. Now the scholars mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can swear by whatever He wants from the creation. We can only swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As a Muslim, a lot of people, they say, I swear on my mother's grave. I swear on my mother's back. I don't know why you would do that. But they say, I swear on my life. I swear on this. I swear on that. As a believer, you can only swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He swears by time now. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Indeed, man is in loss. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ until the end. Except those who believe and do righteous actions until the end. Now, something interesting with this surah that a lot of people may not think about is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that indeed man is in loss. Every human being, they're all losers. Everybody's a loser. But then there's an exception. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except those who believe until the end. When it comes to that exception now, the scholars mentioned that anytime there's an exception, the exception is always a minority. When you say, I have 10 oranges except, do you think that the number that comes after except is going to be like the majority? Or it's going to be, like a minority of the amount of apples that I have. If I say I have 10 apples, right? Like for example, let's say somebody is saying I have 10 apples, like I have, 10 apples, and then they make an exception, right? And, this is a common usage in the Arabic language, and the scholars of Usul al-Fiqh, they mention that anytime an exception is mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that mankind is in loss. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except those who believe. For the most part in the Arabic language, the majority of the usuliyin, the majority of the scholars of usul al-fiqh, they mentioned that anything that comes after an exception is always less than half. It's always a minority, right? So if you just think about this, all of mankind is in loss except those who believe and do righteous actions. In other words, those people are going to be a minority. They're going to be strangers, as we mentioned. That's why the Prophet ﷺ mentions that this deen started as something strange and is going to return as something strange. And even in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this, that وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. That most people who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they commit shirk with Allah. Allah mentions to the Prophet ﷺ, وَمَا أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ وَلَوْ حَرَصْتَ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. Most people, no matter how hard you try, will not believe. Most people. Most of mankind will not be on the right path. Most of mankind will be losers. except those who believe and do righteous actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-An'am, وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. If you obey and follow most people on earth, they will mislead you from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the truth is never known by the majority. The truth and the right way is never known by the majority. You have to think as a believer. What is right, what is wrong? Don't just follow something because everybody's doing it. A lot of people, to them, that's what they do. Right? That everybody is on a particular type of way, a particular type of mindset, so I'm going to be like that. All right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions that وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ, that very few from my slaves, they're thankful. So we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be from this small group, and they're always going to be a minority. They're always going to be a small group. If you think about the amount of Muslims compared to the world population today, what do we have now? Like what, 1.5 billion? 2 billion? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But we're definitely a minority. Even though we're the fastest growing deen in the world, right? Fastest growing religion. But we're still a minority. And as I mentioned, that even among the Muslims, the people who are trying to be on their deen, they're even a smaller group. Right? So always try to align yourself with people who have similar goals to what you have. If you want to memorize the Quran, be around some people that are memorizing the Quran. If you want to be a better person, try to be around good people. But if you keep hanging around people that are going to influence you, then you're going to get nowhere. Right? So inshallah ta'ala, if you stick with these advices, then we can, this is going to help us, have that mindset of putting the akhirah first and being in this life as if we're travelers and wayfarers. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us like what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling Ibn Umar to be like. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we follow this advice in our life. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit from it in the akhirah. Ameen. Does anybody have any questions, any comments? Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
The question is how to cure laziness.
How to cure what?
Laziness.
Laziness.
I feel sometimes demotivated to do ibadah and supporting the dawah. I have tried to listen to Islamic lectures, but I haven't gotten any improvements.
Okay, excellent question. So listen, this is a problem that I think everybody is facing one way or another. Right? I don't think anybody, any human being can, and this is an issue with, of Iman. Some of the Sahaba, they complained to the Prophet ﷺ about this. They said, "O Messenger of Allah, when we're with you, we feel a certain way." Right? When you're telling us about the Akhir, when you're telling us about the Day of Judgment, we feel a certain way, right? We have a high Iman. And when we go away, we feel a certain way. So even the Sahaba, they face this as well. It's a human thing. You're going to have days where you feel motivated, and you're going to have days in which you feel demotivated. You're going to feel lazy, that you don't have any energy to do something. The best thing that you can do is to make dua. The best thing that you can do is to make dua, and then after that, try to read the Quran. And one of the best things that can really make you motivated is reading about people, righteous people, and how they changed their lives. Reading quotes like the quotes that I mentioned of Al-Hasan al-Basri. What did they say? Right? What did Ibn al-Qayyim say? What did Mu'adh? What did the Sahaba? How did they live their lives? Reading the stories of the Sahaba to see the change that they made in their lives. I think this is one of the most important things that we can use and utilize to make ourselves more motivated. Because if you think about it, what did the Sahaba have to get them to where they were? All they had was the Prophet ﷺ. They had his teachings, his words, and they had the Quran. That was it. Now, do we have those things with us today? We have the Quran, we have the Sunnah, we have authentic hadiths that we can benefit from. We got 40 hadith. You have so many scholars you can benefit from, so many books you can benefit from. So really, inshallah ta'ala, if you're around the right people, and you're reading about those people, and you're following good examples, inshallah ta'ala, that could be something that can motivate you as well. Right? Sometimes you hear about a story, and that makes you motivated. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions stories in the Quran so much. Right? Like almost a third of the Quran is just filled with stories. Right? So really, like inshallah ta'ala, if you stick with those things, be around the right company, and try to follow good examples. Try to read about the Sahaba, and just read the Quran. I feel if anybody reads the Quran and they contemplate the Quran, inshallah ta'ala, that could be something that can help a person to be motivated, inshallah. Because as I mentioned, that's all the Sahaba had. And if that was sufficient for them, it's sufficient for us. Right? Inshallah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Also, we had a question last week. Is puberty, reaching the age of puberty, is that a prerequisite of adala, of a narrator of a hadith being upright. So many scholars like Ibn Salah, many scholars, they mentioned that a person, for their narration to be accepted, they would have to reach the age of puberty. But if they're narrating something that occurred while they were younger than the age of puberty, and they narrate that particular incident when they've reached the age of puberty, then it's accepted. Aisha radiallahu anha, she narrated many hadiths. She narrated many things that perhaps happened before she reached the age of puberty. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, this Sahabi right here, Abdullah ibn Abbas, many of those Sahaba who are young, they narrated things that took place when they were younger than the age of puberty, when they did not reach that age. But then later on, they narrated those things and there's no problem. So if a person, at the time of narrating that particular hadith, they would have to be reaching the age of puberty. But the particular narration doesn't have to exist when they're at that age. Inshallah ta'ala, that answered that question. Any other questions? Yeah.
Is it true that scholars in the past used to protest prostate for a very long time? How did they...
To protest?
What was it? Prostate.
To prostrate, yeah. The Prophet ﷺ used to make long prostrations of Sahaba as well. No doubt about that, of course. Anybody who reads the hadiths of the Salah of the Prophet ﷺ, of the Salah of the Sahaba, they would make long sujood, right? They would take a long time. And the Prophet ﷺ even mentions that the closest a person is to his Lord is when he's in sujood, right? So that's the time that we should try to make as much dua as we can, right? So try to make your sujood long. What else? Any other questions? Yeah.
Is it true seeking knowledge, it's more important than sunnah of ibadah?
Yeah, excellent, right? So many scholars mention that. Imam Ahmad, he says that talabul ilmi la ya'diluhu shay'un liman sahat niyyatuh. Imam Ahmad, he says that seeking knowledge, nothing can come close to seeking knowledge for a person who has a right intention, right? So you have many scholars that mention that seeking knowledge is the best, number one supererogatory good deed that you can do after the obligatory deeds. Right? After the obligatory deeds, like you have to pray 5 times a day, you have to cover yourself, you have to pay zakah, you have to go to hajj, you have to fast in Ramadan. After those obligatory deeds, the number one deed that you can do is to seek knowledge. To learn about what will benefit you in this life and the next. Right? So inshallah ta'ala, as I mentioned, some scholars mention that, and for the most part, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. One can say that it's true. Because in order to do the other acts of worship, you need to have knowledge. Right? You need to have knowledge. So it's a prerequisite of all deeds for the most part anyway. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Anything else? Yeah.
Is it true that what's the cure of depression? Sometimes I feel sad without a clear reason.
Okay. Now when it comes to depression, there are different types of depression. You have some people, they're depressed because of personal issues, because of just stuff that just happens in their life, because they're just feeling like that at a particular time. And then you have people who are suffering from depression and it's an actual, psychological problem. If it's a psychological problem, then you should seek some counseling. But if somebody is depressed when it comes to losing hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that can be very dangerous when it comes to your iman. And I feel like when it comes to losing hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a lot of people, they may feel depressed when it comes to the akhirah because of lack of knowledge. Right? Because of lack of knowledge. Maybe somebody doesn't feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be merciful towards them. Some people feel, as if Allah will not forgive them. As if Allah is punishing them. Right? And we as believers are always to have good thoughts of Allah. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, none of you should die except that he thinks good of Allah. Always have good thoughts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's even a hadith Qudsi where Allah Azza wa Jalla, he says that أَنَا عِنْدَ الظَّنِّ عَبْدِي بِي, that I am as my slave thinks of me. Right, so always have good thoughts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as I mentioned, I think the cure for this type of depression is reading the Quran. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that the Quran is a shifa'u lima fi sudur. It's a cure for what is in the hearts. All of the spiritual problems, the spiritual illnesses that exist within the heart, the Quran is a cure to all of them. Right? So read the Quran, contemplate the Quran, attach yourself to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and inshallah ta'ala that can cause a person, inshallah ta'ala, to, if they have a doubt in their heart, that's a different story. Ask somebody who knows. Ask an imam, ask a student of knowledge. Try to find out the answer to that doubt. Sometimes people are depressed because of a certain doubt they have in their heart, right? In their minds. So try to seek counseling for that. But like I said, read the Quran, try to seek counseling. If you have a legitimate psychological problem, seek somebody who's a mental health professional, inshallah. All right, so let's take one more. Amadou, you had a question? Let's pass the mic up, inshallah. Inshallah, this is the last one, inshallah, and then we'll stop for salah.
Sometimes when I'm here, I'm more happy, but when I'm home, like I'm not even happy at all. I don't know what it is. Like when I'm in the masjid, I'm happy more than I'm sitting home.
Same here. I'm happy when I'm in the masjid.
Because when I sit home, I feel like I'm wasting time. It's nothing to do.
I mean, listen, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that among the 7 people that will be shaded on the Day of Judgment, shaded by Allah's throne, is a man whose heart is attached to the masjid. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make you like that. Ameen. Right? That's something beautiful. That's like a lot of people, they may say that how they hate coming to the masjid. They want to be in the clubs. They want to be in the, wherever else they do haram things, right? But mashallah, somebody who has that attachment to the masjid, right? I mean, of course, there's nothing you can really do to take away, your love for the masjid. Inshallah ta'ala, that grows. But when it comes to home, try to do the same things that you do in the masjid at home, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he says, he said, لا تتخذوا بيوتكم قبورا. He says, don't make your homes graveyards. In other words, you can't pray in the graveyards, so pray at home. Right? Pray at home. Try to read Quran at home. Try to have some good company at home. Try to invite some of your brothers over here to our house. Try to have some of that good things that you have in the masjid. Try to bring that home as well. Inshallah ta'ala. Well, as I said, try to do the good things that you do in the masjid at home as well. Inshallah. You have a question? All right, cool. All right, let's do one last one and then we'll stop, inshallah. Okay, so many of the scholars, they mentioned that miswak is not just from the arak tree, not just the root, right? Many scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Abdul Barr, and Nawawi, many scholars mentioned that the point of the miswak is to clean the teeth. So anything that cleans the teeth, that takes a place of miswak, and a person can use that. Some scholars even mentioned that a person can use a rag on their teeth. And then somebody may object to this and say, brother, how could you say that? Right? The Prophet ﷺ used to use the arak tree, but yeah, he didn't always use that particular root that we know and love. Right? When you go to the Islamic bookstores, they have, the miswak. That's not the only thing the Prophet ﷺ would use. Before the Prophet ﷺ passed away, right, on his deathbed, when Aisha's brother, he passed by with a toothstick, he was using one. That one was not the same one that we can find in the stores today from the arak tree, right? The conventional miswak. That was a different one. That was from a palm tree. So even during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba and him as well, they all used different things as well. So nowadays we have the toothbrush. Back then they did not have it. So if somebody wants to use a toothbrush before the wudu, or they want to use the miswak at the times in which it's recommended, then no problem. Bismillah. You can use a toothbrush, no problem with that, inshallah. But the scholars agree, the 4 madhabs agree, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Imam Ahmad, Shafi'i, they all agree that the arak tree is the best one. Because we have a particular hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, I believe he sent Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and he sent him and he told him to get the miswak from that particular tree. Right? But that's the best one. But if somebody uses a toothbrush, no problem, inshallah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So we're going to stop here, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Oh yeah, we also have a what is this? We have this program coming up. It's going to be on April 7th. It's called Defensive Measures. Inshallah ta'ala, this is a program that can benefit us in terms of safety. Of course, we all heard about what happened a couple of weeks ago in New Zealand. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive those victims and to grant them paradise. Ameen. So we don't want something like this happening again. We want to make sure that we're ready as a community, our community here. Other communities, mashallah, they're getting ready. Inshallah ta'ala, we can also get ready as well, just to make sure that we have a better sense of security. So come by to this program, inshallah ta'ala. There's going to be refreshments as well, inshallah. And it's free, there's no charge for it. We also have an open house for Wellspring schools. A lot of you brothers and sisters have been asking me about how to enroll your child. You want more information? This is the best way that you can have information, right? Come into the school yourself. It's going to be an open house program. It's going to be from 6 to 7 p.m., March 28th. That's this Thursday coming up, right? So come to this program and find out more about the school. You can meet the principal. You can meet some of the staff. And whatever questions you have, you can ask them, inshallah. All right, so that's it. جزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله